All right, guys, we are here with our last seminar, talking some more fly fishing. Again, more stuff we don't get too much on Bucks Island, but hey, hope you get something out of it, guys. We've enjoyed the weekend. This has been a great event. Huge thank you to the Alabama Fishing Show and Expo. Hopefully, you're going to hear a lot of good feedback. We'd certainly like to know. So I'm going to get out of here and flip the camera around, and let's talk fly fishing again. Last seminar of the weekend.
All right, thanks, Mike. And thanks everybody for coming out today. The Alabama Fishing Show and Expo. I'm Mike Revisco, hosting all these seminars here. And one of my favorite guys that I met last year in East Tennessee, Frank Roden, a wealth of fly fishing knowledge and knowledge of other things too that I've come to find out. I was going to be talking about beyond the waters, trout fishing. So enjoy. Last seminar of the day, last seminar of the show. Here you go, Mike.
Great, thanks, Mike. Guys, welcome to Beyond the Waters. It's the places it takes us, the people we meet, and things we do beyond the fly fishing. We need to take a look at where we're going, where it's going to take us, and the things we're doing, of course. But it's more than just fly fishing. It's a way of life. It's when you meet these people and you start going on these different adventures, figuring out what's going on, it comes to the planning stages. You can get wrapped up in the planning stages of these trips and the fly fishing as well as you can the fly fishing. The anticipation. When we get out there and we start planning these trips and we're talking to the local people, gaining local knowledge and the guides, and we're looking up these maps like this and just a number of different things, it begins to just sort of shine. It comes out in you. People can see that new spark that you have inside of you because of what you're looking forward to and creating. You know, some of our people are headed to Wyoming this summer, and I'm already hearing them anticipate and plan their trips and talk to people that's been there and the things that they plan when they get out there. This is all a part of it. So share this knowledge and make sure that you do all your homework and find out about all these places, the people, the local guides, places to eat, the fly shops. Now, part of this anticipation is you never have enough equipment. There's always that one other piece of equipment that you need for this fly fishing trip. So try to anticipate that and pick up that equipment well beforehand so you're rigged and ready to go. Part of this anticipation is fly tying. You get wrapped up in this fly tying, and a number of people I know will actually slow down their fly fishing before they will their fly tying because of the hobby, what they get out of it in the evenings, going home and taking a few minutes, getting away from everything else and tying a few flies, but also tying those flies for that next trip. When we get ready to go on trips, boats are important, whether it's a flats boat, a drift boat, a bass boat. But this particular boat here is a flats boat, and it's a great platform for our saltwater trips. On these saltwater trips, this platform helps us reach these ladyfish, snook that may be close to our seawalls or inshore. Of course, mackerel that may be offshore, maybe past sandbars, this type of thing. Longfin tuna and also these false albacores that can give a heck of a fight. When they come through and take, they're kin to that longfin tuna. When that longfin tuna comes by, expect for him to come by like a New York taxi driver that doesn't check up and grabs you by the arm on the way by and keeps going. That's about what these false albacore and longfin tuna will do. And then we get the tarpon. Everybody anticipates and looks forward to that first tarpon. When you get that first tarpon on, it might be much like I was on my first tarpon trip. When that first one got on, I held my breath, I think, from the time it got on till we got it up near the side of the boat, because I was afraid the whole time I'm going to lose this fish. I had this fish on, didn't say a word. 2 other people on the boat was looking the other way in a conversation, and I wasn't saying a word. And they turned around and said, "Hey, you got a tarpon on?" I said, "Yeah." You know, I got him. But we was able to bring him on to beside the boat. A lot of people don't realize with these tarpon, especially in the state of Florida, you had to have a permit to boat one. So we bring them up to the boat side. We try to measure them there, make sure that the fish have a chance of survival. If you get this fish on and you look back there and you see a shark chasing, the best thing you can do, count it as a caught fish, point that rod at the fish, wrap that line up, and rip it back and break that fish off as quick as you can, giving that tarpon a chance to survive and get away for the next catch. Otherwise, you're may get it up at the boat side and find that you only have the forward part of the tarpon left. Atlantic sails. These fish are not impossible on a fly rod. We were offshore near the Gulf Stream on one particular day, and we saw some sailfish coming up. When the first one I saw a dark back and everything was slicked back. Basically, I said he had his ears pinned back coming at us. And at that moment, I felt like I ought to be hearing James Bond music in the background. He's coming at us. We got a chance to cast on it, and we was able to hook up on this particular fish when we brought him up to boat side. Now, as we brought him up to boat side, I thought, "Oh, this is great. It may never see another one on a flats boat like that." But what happened is we called to another boat nearby, told him we had some sailfish, Atlantic sails on, and this was a big charter boat, and you could almost hear him laugh through the radio because he didn't believe we was out on this flats boat and we had this fish on. But we got it to the boat side, and we got inshore, and we were running, looking for tarpon along the sandbars off the coast, off the east coast of Florida. And when this happened, we seen this big dark fish again, and I'm not sure what wasn't sure what it was. And the guide flipped us around, took us away from the fish, headed out in front of the fish and got whaled out in front of there, found 11 feet of water, which was where we saw this fish initially. And he brought us out in front of us, and we was able to hook up on the second one for the day. Now, tarpon, when you hook up on them, it's called jumping them. Of course, landing them is a different subject. You may jump 10 for every one that you land. When you bring that fish up the boat side, if the guide reaches over there and takes that leader in his hand, it's a caught fish. It's automatically considered a caught fish when that guide puts that leader in his hand. One thing you can do for him on this is when he takes it in his hand is point the rod down toward him, give him some slack, because if that fish breaks off and you've got a tight line between you and his hand, that hook is coming straight for his hand. So give us some slack line for that to happen. But we're going to move on here to Jeep trips. They can be local as well as far away as Canada or Alaska. But Jeeps will get us into some small water that we really enjoy fishing. Get us to a number of small streams, and there's some good opportunities there. There's a double that we caught on a Jeep trip. That's a brook trout and a rainbow, both landed at the same time on a 3-weight rod. One took a woolly bugger, and a nymph was slapping that front fish there on its side, and here comes the other fish and takes that nymph. Now you got two, a 3-weight rod. It can get exciting, but it's not that hard to do. Sometimes you get lucky and you get fish as long as axe handles. Remember the fellow with the cigar that may have talked about him at previous times? I'm going to step back one step. When he caught one of these as long as the axe handle, guess who lit up a cigar? We was ready to go. And of course, some good color fish. There again, good male fish right there, that long jaw. But then we make trips like into Alberta and British Columbia. When I got to Alberta, I found a little cafe people introduced me to that has the best sweet tea outside of Alabama. Not only was that tea good, they had some walnut pie that was hot, it'd melt in your mouth, and comes the coldest ice cream that would give you brain freeze. You put all that together, that sweet tea, that hot walnut pie, and that cold ice cream, say, man, how did this get to Canada? That's an Alabama deal. But to get to here, you got to go through Carter Sea in Canada. I landed in Canada, went through customs. They said, follow the blue line. I followed the blue line. I get partial way down the blue line, and here's a man throws up an arm in front of me and points, says, follow the red line. I followed the red line. I went into this big room with a lot of tables and a scanning machine. I was the only game in town. They took my bag, they searched it. They said, Mr. Roden, and this is not the first time it's happened, we need you to take some clothes off and step in front of this machine. As soon as I stepped in front of the machine, they said, Mr. Roden, you're clear to go. You ever tried to put all your luggage back in that bag that you just packed exactly right in order to get on the trip? It's difficult. That packing job is not as tidy as it was when you left home. Well, I was able to leave there, but as I was leaving, the lady there thanked me for coming to Canada, and I said, the next time I come back, I'm going to be in gym shorts, a T-shirt, and flip-flops. There's going to be no reason to bring me in this room. So we went on to the Carter Sea, which is Calgary. It's the main entrance into Canada through the airport. As I walked through the doors, I could hear country music. I was seeing Western hats everywhere, and a few people dancing over to one side. It was the week of the Calgary Stampede. So this is another one of those great places it took me. The fly fishing trip led me into. We got on this trip, and we made our own way down to Crow's Nest Pass. There's an angling shop there, and as we entered that angling shop to gain our Canadian sporting license and our Alberta fishing license, we purchased this stuff. There were some locals talking in the shop, and pardon me for eavesdropping, but they was talking about this road that went north to south in Canada that had all these great trout streams on it. We got through, we checked up, and my friend and I went out, and as we opened the doors and sat down in the pickup, he says, what you think? And I said, I'm ready, let's go. So we grabbed what we had and headed up the Trout Highway. They didn't tell us that when we got up where we wanted to go, there wasn't a phone within a 2-hour drive. As you got there, we started fishing all these great streams and just caught fish everywhere we went. Legendary names that you here that you don't think you would have ever fly fished. And I didn't know we were there on these streams until we got on the Trout Highway and I started reading these signs. Like, oh yeah, I've heard about this. And about every 2 miles, we was on another stream. Anything from Racehorse Creek to Old Man River to Livingston. There was just a lot of great streams, and we had some really good fly fishing. But it all started by us just listening when we went into a fly shop to what the others were talking about. And if you ever meet these guys in Crow's Nest Pass, thank them for talking about it as we entered the shop. The Trout Highway, this is one of many streams, but it's pretty much what you're going to see on most of those streams there in that part of the highway. As we went further north, the streams were easier to fish. But then we turned back and we went down to Waterton Park. As we rode into Waterton Park, the most photographed hotel in the world, the Prince of Wales Hotel. They have 2 different dining rooms. One's white tablecloth, the other one's plaid and this type stuff. But the fellows that met us at the door as we walked in, they were in kilts. Well, where we at? So that was a different experience, and we had some good meals and stays there. There was a bear out in the middle of the downstairs lobby, and one of the ladies at the desk said, before you leave, you got to rub that bear's fanny. If you don't go over and rub it, you ain't going to have any luck. So we went up there and we polished the end of that tail. we wanted some good luck. As we went on around and we went in behind the Prince of Wales Hotel, look what we find. It's a village there in Waterton Park. Now, Waterton Park is the extension of Glacier. If you go from East Glacier up across the border, you're in Waterton Park. It's a joint effort by the 2 countries. But right here at Waterton Park, there within sight of the Prince of Wales Hotel, great trout fishing right there at the foot of those falls. Good wildlife that you was inside of the hotel when you seen it. Great fish. Again, this is that place in BLM type property that was able to visit and spend the night. Here on a lake there, you see that we are rigging float tubes. We went to the upwind side of the lake, got in the float tubes, and drifted across the stream. And it wasn't anything but a drift and casting and hooking up continuously across the lake. And a really good fish might pull you for a distance before you get him to your float tube. Now from there, we went into Wyoming. Mary, I mentioned your name again here because you're going to be seeing this part of Wyoming that's coming up in this summer in your adventures. We enjoyed Wyoming, but one of the most enjoyable parts of Wyoming was a breakfast we had. We went over there and we seen an old white block building that hadn't been washed or painted in 30 years with a gravel and driveway. And all around it was these nice, polished up hotels, Western themes, and just what you would expect to see out in Wyoming and Jackson or these places. This thing looked out of sorts, so we pulled in and we went to breakfast. When we went in, we was met by a waitress that showed us over to a booth. She just told us what the menu was. She didn't bring a menu. And then after she told us what the menu was, she told us what we was going to have for breakfast that morning, much like one of my aunts would have done at the White Palace Hotel, White Palace Cafe, that is, years ago downtown here. You know, she told us what we was going to have. Found out later she was actually the owner of the cafe. But she led us the right direction. Meals come out, food was good. But there was a long table down the center of the cafe. Fellows started coming in with worn jeans and dusty boots, Western boots, and their hats. One of them threw a hat on the table, and everybody started throwing a couple bucks in the hat as they come on. And they got around this long table, and they started sharing stories, and they was talking about a local tourist that they had observed the evening before. And we're sitting in the booth, you know, what we're doing, we're eavesdropping again. We hear this story, and we both crack up laughing at the same time. One of the older ranchers turned around and said, "Boys, you might as well come over here and join us." So we got our plates and joined them. As we sat down, they said, "Throw your money in the hat." I'm figuring it's the tip money. You know, I got it figured out. This is tip for the waitress. So I threw a good tip in there, and we went on and talking, and they asked us about where our home was and why we was there and what we was doing, and they was sharing ideals and all types of good information. And real enjoyable morning when it's what we refer to as our rancher's breakfast. As we got towards the end there, they all invited us out to different ranches to come and fish their property. You know, this was ideal. You know, we was hunting waters to fish. Not only had we, in Canada, been told about the Trial Highway, but we get to Wyoming and the ranchers invite us out on their property. But towards the end of the meal, there at the end, one of the guys pulled out a deck of cards and he held the cards over at me and he said, "Draw." Okay, what we drawing for? It ended up being that the low card won all the money in the hat. That wasn't tip money. So we enjoyed that, and they invited us out on ranches, and we did some fishing, but they also invited us to join them again one morning at that week there at Cafe. Some of the most memorable times on that trip. When the fishing was great, the drill boat trips, like you see here, was wonderful. The rancher's breakfast was really a treat. It was an experience beyond the waters that led us there. That was breakfast on the Grays River in Wyoming. Now, you get there to Yellowstone, and you need transportation inside the park. Watch for the yellow buses. That's Yellowstone. The wildlife right on the side of the road. You got deer here. You got the buffalo that give them some distance. You can get within several feet of them, but I don't advise it. Give them a little distance. Fishing out on one of the streams, the Madison, you're going to see elk right out there in the stream with you as you're fishing. You think about a lot of greasebone and balls that we deal with in the streams here in the east. You get out west, that's the rocks you're dealing with, and it's really easy wading. It's not near as difficult as these greasebone balls. Again, I'm bringing you back to the Madison because I want to remind you that the backs of the fish match the bottom of most of the streams. So what color back are you looking for on the Madison? It's going to be green because there's a lot of grass in it. Don't let the pictures fool you when you're looking at grass in a stream like that. It can be much deeper than you think it is. Just use your wading stick and check it. Here again, it's showing you the Madison and the green bottoms. And if you look close, you could see fish in that actual photo there. But that's some of the fish we get into there. More good cuts. Not all your fish are going to be huge. There's some of them going to be small fish. We're going to talk now about Utah, going across the border out of Wyoming into Utah. Indian Crossing BLM property there near Dutch John, Utah, has some very interesting things. They include the Green River, Utah, which has probably the most fish per mile of any stream I've been on. But these old westerns, have you heard of the Hole in the Wall? It's an actual place. And I always thought with these westerns, it's a little bit narrow path that you just barely could get through. That's the Hole in the Wall. Actually, Hole in the Wall where Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch would pass through to go hold up in their dugout right here. This dugout is small, but once you get underground, there's quite a bit of room in it. And it makes you think it's out right in the middle of nowhere. Well, there's a nice ranch house just out to the right of this. And if you're at the ranch house and you own this ranch and you're looking back toward the dugout here, you can't spot it from the house. You basically have to walk up on this to see it. So I can understand how they could hold out. But this is Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch. That's where they actually held up right there. By the way, the ranch house was built out of stolen logs that were being floated downriver by the timber companies. And the man just snaking out what logs he wanted and build his ranch out of them. And they still got the numbers and markers for what logging company they belong to. So if you research the numbers on the logs, you could see who the rightful owner was. When you get on Green River, Utah, very congested when you get right on the launch site. There's boats lined up everywhere. But within a short distance, they get spread out. Look how calm and nice that looks like coming down through the gorge there. Don't let that fool you. If the man tells you to sit down and the mother-in-law's coming up, it's some rough water. If he says sit down, you sit down. The mother-in-law, the washing machine, Dead Man's Shoals, are just three of the many places along the river that this would fool you because you can get some rough water quick. And I heard some fast water coming up. But he said, you might want to sit down. And I turned and looked at him. He was on the sticks. And he said, the mother-in-law is coming up. I turned around and sat down and said, yes, she is, because it was rough water. Get a chance for the lodges out there in the national parks. Stop and have dinner at one of them or a night stay. It's well worth the price. It's as cheap, if not cheaper, than a room on the Gulf Coast. Stop and take advantage of one. Here is, I think this is East Glacier, the dining area in East Glacier. Big timbers in the place. So it'll get your attention. Good fish. Good fish everywhere, good company. The Weeping Wall, as you go through East Glacier, is going to be all this water coming off side of the mountain. Water coming off one side, off the other side, maybe 6,000 to 8,000 feet straight down. So you're talking a 2-lane road. So put your wife over on that side of the car. Be prepared for delays in your flights going and coming. Returning home from one trip, look at the water on this aircraft. We actually landed at the airport, and the aircraft in front of us taxiing through it. And I'm saying, we must have some pretty good pilots on board. They landed water this deep. And it wasn't an hour and a half. We were taxiing out again, headed for Atlanta. So these guys are used to some of this high water, but I'm not used to seeing that under my commercial airliner. Here at Rainbow City Auction is a place to contact me. I'll talk more with you about it. But I want to get back to that flats boat that you saw. If you go offshore like we was, electrical storm may form over the shoreline. A lot of times the Everglades will push that storm system out to us. And you're having to hang off all the lightning and the storms and everything going on near the shoreline. Near the end of the day, that electrical storm breaks, the rain stops, but you look up on the radar and it shows you've got maybe 30, 45 minutes and it's going to crank up again. Well, when you're out there and you're on the edge of the Gulf Stream and the first boat cranks up among that flotilla that's out there waiting on the storm to pass, it's like everybody's sitting there waiting on the first man to turn the switch. When that first boat cranks, everybody cranks, and it's a horse race jockeying on for position because the cuts going in places like Stewart and Jupiter are narrow. So first man there, first boat there gets to go in there. His clients get off in the dry there at the marina, and the other people backed up having to wait. So we're running, we're jockeying in position. We're just pounding the water. And, there's 5 or 6 boats, and everybody's taking the lead at one time or the other. And the guy running their boat leans over his console, puts his head between ours, and says, "If you can stand it, I can get you out front." We shook our heads, yes. He got us out there. We paid the price. And we were just bouncing from top to top out there. And he brought us in and just was running neck to neck with the next fastest boat, just back and forth jockeying. As we got up there to that narrow cut, it was obvious there was only one boat going to make it. He says, "Hold on." I thought we was already at top speed. He punched that thing and took us through that inlet right in there and swung us into the marina, this protected harbor. Just almost slid us sideways up against the dock, and we stepped out to starboard, there near the starboard side. And as we stepped off, we was able to step on under an awning right there near the dock. And about the time we stepped on that awning, you would think the devil was pouring it out because it was just pounding. And there's these other boats with all the people standing in them just getting soaked. The guy shouts at us, "Go to the motel, get cleaned up, meet me at my house." We didn't remove any equipment or anything at the boat. We cleaned up, we went over to his house. He threw us some fish and he said, "Put them on the grill." We put them on the grill as his wife and daughter was preparing other stuff to go with it. A couple other guys show up with their clients, and there was some tall tales told that night. We count that as beyond the waters. So as you get an opportunity, come by and share those opportunities that you've had with me at the shop. I'd be real interested in hearing them. But if you go in a particular area, be able to help you and point out some stuff that we've done that you might want to see, the hole in the wall, or you might want to get out there to where the rancher's having breakfast. I'm happy to share any of it with you. I'll be around the halls and show till it closes shortly. But thank you for coming. Good stuff.
Well, guys, that is going to do it. Let me flip the camera around here. Thanks for joining us here at the Alabama Fishing Show and Expo and hanging out with us online. Hope you made it by this weekend. If you missed any of the seminars, go back. Probably the easiest thing, head over to our YouTube channel and check that thing out. You can find all of them. So, guys, hope you had a great weekend. Hope you got out, did some fishing, and yeah, we'll be back in the shop wide open next week. So come by and see us for all your needs. Time to go take that whole giant tackle shop and shove it back into the tackle shop over the loft in Bucks Island. So we're going to go get to work. Hope you had a great weekend. This has been an awesome event. Please, if you didn't make it over here, find somebody that did, find out about it. Let's get some hype going so they come back next year. All right, we'll see you guys.